Hi, y'all. This is Kristen Chenoweth.
Hi, I'm Gloria Stefan.
This is Sarah Bareilles.
Hi, I'm Patty Lapone.
This is Lin-Manuel Miranda. You're listening to the Broadway Podcast Network.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Theater Podcast. I'm your host, Alan Seals, and this is the Theater Podcast. Intimate, personal conversations with the industry's biggest names. Our guest is Jefferson Mays, who maybe you saw on Broadway recently as Mayor Shin in The Music Man next to Sutton Foster and Hugh Jackman, two up-and-comers. You know, you should check them out. But Jefferson, too, has a long career of amazing storytelling and performing in his own right. Of course, he has a passion for telling an actual story, beginning, middle, and end. Like, just the art and the passion behind him wanting to tell this whole story is amazing. And he's got actually a history of taking on multiple roles in multiple productions. Sorry, I should say he has a history of taking on roles in multiple productions that allow him to play multiple characters in the same show. And coming up right now, this winter in 2022 is no different. His unique adaptation of A Christmas Carol is him on stage alone playing all of the characters. It sounds phenomenal. It looks phenomenal. If you go to the website for the show, there's actually a video trailer there from, I believe it was their out-of-town production. But gosh, it just looks amazing. I can't wait to see it. So you know the drill. Find me online, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, etc., TikTok even. And now everybody please enjoy this episode with Jefferson Mays.
Here you go. 1, 2, 3.
I am so excited to start this episode because this guest is someone I found fascinating for so long, and I'm finally able to get into digging into what makes him tick. Today's guest is a 3-time Tony Award nominee for his performances in Oslo, his multi-character performance in A Gentleman's Guide to Love and Murder, as well as his Tony Award-winning performance in I Am My Own Wife, where he played over 40 different roles. His television credits include recurring arcs on FX's The Americans, Westworld, Nurse Jackie, The Closer, Law & Order SVU, as well as a guest role on the Netflix hit series Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, who just ran in the New York Marathon the other day. He was most recently seen on Broadway as Mayor Shin in The Music Man alongside Hugh Jackman and Sutton Foster, and also recently completed his one-man rendition of A Christmas Carol at the Geffen Playhouse, for which he received rave reviews and is now bringing the same show to Broadway. Jefferson Mays, welcome to the Theater Podcast.
What a pleasure it is to be with you, Ellen.
I love A Christmas Carol. It's one of those shows, one of those stories, right, that has been adapted and performed in so many different ways. And there's series versions and there's comedic versions. And then this is the first time I've ever heard of a one-man version. So obviously you've got experience playing multiple roles in a single show, as part of the writing of the show. It's not like a swing or whatnot, but where did this idea even come from? Because you're part of the adaptation team that created this, and then now you're performing in it, and it is phenomenal.
Well, it was a strange beginning, as so many beginnings are. My wife, Susan Lyons, and I were walking our dog through the La Brea tar pits in Los Angeles.
Like one does.
And yeah, exactly. And we ran smack into Matt Schackman, who's the artistic director of the Geffen Theater. And we were talking about his season. And he said, "Is there anything you'd like to do?" And what popped into my head that November day in 2017, next to the corpse of Mastodon, was A Christmas Carol. It just sort of came, upwelled into my mind like a methane bubble from one of the tar pits. And it's a project that I think I've always wanted to do ever since I was a child, and first heard my parents read, nay, perform this story for me. And so he said, "Fine, let's go with that. Make something and show it to me." So my wife and I sat down and got our hands on Charles Dickens's own rather brutal cut of his manuscript that he performed himself. So in actuality, A Christmas Carol started out as a one-man show.
No
He
kidding.
wrote it. Yeah, he wrote it in, I think, 1843. It was published at Christmas time, and very quickly became popular. And there were a number of stage adaptations in London, I think, in the following year. But Dickens, who was an actor himself, decided to do it as a public reading. And I think he subjected about a bunch of coal miners in Birmingham to the 3-hour unexpurgated version, which they loved. But he said, I can whittle this down to 90 lean minutes of A Christmas Carol. So we based our version on Dickens's own one-man version. We took some stuff away and added some things that we loved from the original, and came up with what you'll see at the Nederlander.
That's insane. I didn't realize that Dickens was a performer. I thought he was just a writer. We hear about like the great Charles Dickens and the Christmas Carol and the writings, and I didn't know he performed it.
He was. We almost lost a great novelist. Actually, he had an audition for one of the leading actor managers of the day, and got a horrible cold, so he missed his audition appointment. He'd spent 6 months learning all the major roles in Shakespeare that he could wow them with. But he was a no-show because of this cold. So I think he probably would have gone on and been an actor and maybe gotten into novels. But I think we have that cold to thank for Dickens channeling all of his energies into his writing.
And then the 1840s, getting a cold was no joke. I mean,
no joke. No.
Yeah.
and I guess a cold is an early form of COVID.
Yeah, there you go. I just loved it. One of the reviews I read from the Geffen production was like, "You star as everyone, including a potato." So I think this is going to be phenomenal. The set, I mean, looking at the videos, there's a trailer, there's actual video trailer for this that just makes it look phenomenal. But like going back and let's skip. We'll come back to this, but you went to Yale College, which is a feat in and of itself. But going back as a child, where did this love for performing and storytelling come into play? Because knowing you and knowing the work that you take on, it's more than just getting up and singing and dancing and spitting out lines. Like you are a true lover of telling a full story. And that's something I've always admired about you.
I am indeed. Thank you so much for observing that. And I think it comes from hearing full stories as a child. Again, I think Christmas Carol, my exposure to it through my wonderful parents, who are sadly no longer with us, was a seminal moment for me. I remember distinctly a night. I think it was during the Vietnam War, because I remember the nightly news having black and white images of GIs being taken in helicopters from rice paddies in Vietnam. And that night we were going to watch Wild Kingdom. I think it was a Sunday night in December. And the basset hound and the cat ran under the TV table, which was a rickety table with a black and white portable TV on it. And it came crashing to the ground and broke. And so with the night's entertainment lost, my father, in a moment of inspiration, reached up and brought down this sort of yellowing volume of Charles Dickens' Christmas stories, and opened it to A Christmas Carol, and he began reading it. And when he'd get tired, he'd pass it off to my mother, and she would carry on reading it. And I and my three siblings were transfixed, and I think they read through the entire thing that evening. And I remember hearing my dad's beautiful, detached narrator's voice. And I remember watching my mother, this woman I thought I knew so well, transforming before my eyes into Marley's ghost, into Little Fan, into Ebenezer Scrooge, into the Ghost of Christmas Past. And it was kind of scary to see this transmogrification happen. And I think it's in that moment that I fell in love with performance, because it was theater in its purest form, wasn't it? It was a cracking good story performed by two able performers, in this case, and then a riveted audience sitting in a line along the sofa. So, and I think it was that night that I fell in love with theater in many ways, and certainly with the tale of A Christmas Carol.
Wow. And that was in Clinton, Connecticut? I know.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
Yeah. So you grew up in Connecticut, and did your family start? I guess your parents, did they embrace the sort of love that you had and start taking you into the city to see shows, or were you doing classes or seeing things?
No,
locally?
I didn't. They were wonderful in that they never discouraged me and they never encouraged me. They sort of made it available to me. They were avid theater goers themselves, subscribers at Long Wharf Theater in New Haven since 1969, up and through into the present millennium. And they also subscribed to Yale Rep. And then I would get student rush tickets. If I'd finished my homework on a Wednesday night, they would take me in and I'd get a seat and get to see Rosmer's Home or Journey's End or Quatermain's Terms or, whatever play was on in the 70s. And I became an audience member. I fell in love with the theater, never dreaming that I would actually be in the theater, but I thought it was a magical place to be.
Well, I guess then you said you never dreamt you would be on the performing side of it. So was there a show or a moment that you can think back on where it just clicked and you were like, this is what I have to do. This is where I belong, up there instead of down here in the seats.
Yes, maybe so. I remember, actually, come to think of it, I did have a strange sort of mystical moment, if I may inflict that on you. When I was 5 or 6 years old, my mother's friend had called her up on the phone and said, come down Waterside Lane in Clinton to see my tree. It was in the autumn. It was a beautiful blue sky. And we went down to see this tree, and it was covered with migrating monarch butterflies. It was the most beautiful sort of surreal vision of instead of leaves, all of these little gently batting wings against a beautiful, pure blue autumnal sky. And I had this sort of moment where I said, if all else fails, a little voice said in my head, if all else fails, you can become an actor. Don't worry.
That's the easy course.
Exactly. But then I sort of forgot about that and then fell into it much later. I was in high school musicals. We never did plays. And I never was cast very well. I was always sort of a singing waiter in Hello, Dolly. And so I was sort of content to be in the chorus. But I think it's when I did my first play, again, with my parents' friends, they had this little funny society called the Clinton Amateur Theatrical Society, or CATS, in which they would designate a play, like The Importance of Being Earnest, and do it in their living room. Everybody would come dressed up. And with script in hand, they'd sort of stumble around the front parlor, eating, crumpets and drinking tea and spouting Oscar Wilde. And the guy that was supposed to play Algernon Moncrief, was sick, couldn't come. So at the age of 15, I stepped in and played Algie in this living room production, and I just loved it. So I think there's probably, for plays, there was no going back after that moment.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode. So you realize that your entire career you can thank to two people having colds.
Yes. What? Who? I was sorry. What? Who?
Two people having a cold.
Yes. Oh my God. That's right. I wonder how many other careers have been built on sickness. In others.
You look at like understudies or swings or something, and all of a sudden
That's right.
Somebody has to
My
step
God.
in.
Can we just talk about understudies and swings for just a brief moment?
Please.
This has been the year of the understudy and swing, the apotheosis of the understudy and swing, which has completely transformed my whole idea of company and what that means. Doing The Music Man, which we started in December of last year, and then were quickly just laid low by a vicious visitation of COVID. sometimes we'd be absent almost like 10 to 15 members of the cast, and the swings would come out and just do this extraordinary job, sometimes with an hour's notice. Kathy Voitka, who went on for Sutton Foster for preview number 2 or 3, I think.
I remember that in the news. Yeah.
It was just, I just remember I didn't leave the stage. I had to do some costume changes, but I was just in the wings watching this extraordinary woman, this extraordinary artist step into this role and do it and do it beautifully.
They usually, in that early in her production, like I don't even remember if she had a costume made at that point. So using somebody else's costume, hasn't had a put in, hasn't even been rehearsed in, and then all of a sudden you're going on in front of 1,000 people. And gosh, I one of my favorite instances to that point too was when T. Oliver Reed got to go on as a Fate in Hadestown, which
that's right,
because that's a role traditionally played by a woman, and now T's going in and just crushed it. Absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
So like necessity breeds innovation. And I absolutely love the amount of change and new art, and I guess the ability the forcing function to try things that we've never had the guts to try before, that had to come out of COVID because we had no other choice.
Yeah, absolutely. We had, like, Sam Gold went on in the Scottish play, one night, I think, book in hand. But that's theater. I mean, that's what we all do, and we all do it at this, especially in musical, is it this surprisingly this extraordinarily high level of ability, and so there is no such thing as hierarchy in the company of a show. There just isn't. Everyone is an equal. Everyone is able and gifted and deserves this chance, to perform. And it was just thrilling to watch.
And it was thrilling as an audience member to hear about these things too. And like, I guess, from the producerial, the creative side, obviously you don't want to lose ticket sales and you don't want your cast getting sick. But from a growth perspective and pushing the industry forward, I really, like I said, I just really loved how we got to see people shine in a way that they probably wouldn't have been able to otherwise. And it's made so many people's careers, it just shot them into stardom. I think
absolutely. Well, this happened to Sutton, our leading lady, Sutton Foster herself.
Yeah,
was in Thoroughly Modern Millie, out of town, La Jolla Playhouse, and the lead became indisposed or something happened, and Sutton, who was her understudy, just went right on, and the rest is history.
Yeah, a lot of alphabuzz that way too. You get a lot of your big alphabuzz now were understudies and swings. So I mean, I was a swing once, and I don't think I could ever do that again. The pressure, the mental anguish I went through every day of like, wait, can I sing that part? Do I remember that part? I had to cover 4 tracks in Forever Plaid. I was the swing for all 4 of them. And I was insane with anxiety that entire run, just because the harmonies are so tight, and I was singing in the wings, and I was doing the choreography in the wings every single night to keep it fresh. And I still don't think I don't know if I could have done it if I had gone on for.
You didn't get the opportunity to go on.
It was a short run, and I never had the opportunity to go on. But it was really, really frightening. It was incredible.
Well, I bet you would have risen to the occasion. We had one of our cast members, Branch Woodman. I think this is his like 4th or 5th production of Music Man. He's sort of the resident scholar of Music Man. And I think very early on, he went up into the string the barbershop quartet, and just blended in beautifully. And it was just a sublime moment again to behold.
Do you experience that in or have you experienced that where you get I guess the actor's equivalent of in the zone that sports athletes get, where all of a sudden you've just won the game and you don't realize half of what you did, or like a runner's high where you're just in the zone and you don't remember the last half marathon you just ran, but you're in the lead now, right? So do you get from the beginning of a show to the end of a show sometimes you're like, what did I just do? And then you're standing there in front of a standing ovation saying, I guess I did okay.
Yes. No, that's a common feeling, I think. I mean, I think it also depends upon the actual time you are on stage. I mean, like recently playing Mary Shinn, I was sort of on stage in pockets and off stage. And it's funny because it's only in those moments off stage I found that you really appreciate the magic of theater. I mean, some of my happiest, most transcendent moments have been in the wings, in the wash of the spill of light from the stage, watching what's going on that stage and marveling at it, and what's going on backstage too. And those, for me, are the truly magical moments of theater, because the magical moments that you're part of, you as you beautifully put it, you sort of don't experience. It's a weird state of ecstasis, and you're not aware until it's all over. Particularly doing a one-person show like a Christmas Carol, with no intermission, because literally my sensation is I leave my dressing room door, I enter the stage, something happens, and I come off the stage, and it's over, and it's time suspends, for me.
I can imagine. Yeah, you look back at the end of it and forget how you got there. And
Yes.
well, along the lines of playing multiple characters, though, you do this quite frequently. You're choosing roles where you get to embody different roles in the same production, like like I said, scripted, right? So you're telling a story and you're acting it out like your dad did that one night when you were a kid, which I think is just beautiful. And I guess maybe that just answered the question I'm about to ask. But are you gravitated towards these instances, these opportunities to tell a story amongst multiple characters in a single production? Or do you prefer deep diving into one character and doing it for months and peeling back the layers of that one character?
Yes. Oh gosh, that's a fascinating question. I am I do gravitate, I think, towards storytelling in general, and in storytelling, I do a lot of recorded books, as does my wife, and that's a very different experience, but a singular pleasure in that you get this whole narrative to yourself, and you get to populate it with all the characters in the book and tell the story itself, from beginning to the middle and the end, and that's a lovely feeling. And there's something about it that feels extremely elemental. Um, Theater in its most basic form, as I said, a story and a performer and an audience. Um, so that does thrill me. Maybe it means I'm a superficial person because I like to sort of skip around and touch upon actors, and maybe the deep dive into character is something that may frighten me somewhat. Although I have enjoyed playing, single characters. But within every interesting character, every character worth playing, there's sort of a multiplicity of characters. There are many facets to explore, and they're endless. That exploration is endless.
I can't remember who told me this, and I'm going to quote this, and if anybody listening remembers, tweet at me or something. Let me know. They normally play bad. Oh, it's Patrick Page. Normally play bad guys, right? It's somebody who it gets cast for that dark, deep, like evil person.
And his gorgeous voice.
And their gorgeous voice. And he plays the character as if the character is a good guy, because nobody wakes up and says, I want to do bad things today. They wake up and they believe what they're doing is right. So when you have a good script, a Pulitzer Prize winning script, such as the ones that you have had the pleasure of performing, and the wonderful words, you let the words do the talking, you let the story really unfold and do the talking. And I haven't had the opportunity yet to play a bad guy since hearing this, but it really opens something up for me where I can say, instead of going in and doing the stereotypical, like, "Muhahaha, I'm a bad guy," like the cartoony thing, just play it like a genuine person who thinks they're doing good, and they're going to come across loved and hated all at the same time.
Yes. No, I think that's a beautiful perception. Yeah, absolutely. I don't think there's any other way to approach that. Yeah, no, he's so smart, Patrick.
Do you have a favorite type of I guess of show, like you've done musicals, you've done plays, you've done comedies, you've done serious ones. Looking back, do you have a favorite that you've done or something that you haven't done yet that you want to do?
Um, I don't know. I've never been one of those actors with a laundry list of or a shopping list of roles that I must needs do, before I reach the age of 60 or something. I always, maybe it's laziness on my part, but I always like being sort of mugged or ambushed by a production in which someone comes to me and is more excited about it than I am and says, listen, you really should do this. And I think those are, to be confronted by those sorts of opportunities is always more exciting, because generally it's nothing that you would have thought of yourself. I mean, when I did I Am My Own Wife, I literally got a phone call out of the blue from my friend Doug Wright, the playwright, who said, would you like to be in a play that hasn't been written yet? And I said, oh, sure. What's it about? He said, it's about a gay East German 65-year-old transvestite. And I thought, yes, that makes no sense. That's just the last, really the last thing I would have thought of.
We're going to take a short break. Stay tuned for more of the episode.
So yes, so in answer to your question, no, I don't have a list of things to do. And in answer to your other question about what my favorite thing is, it's generally whatever I'm working on at the time, whatever absorbs and consumes me. But again, I'll say that Christmas Carol is special because I do think it's been something that's been simmering on a back burner in my mind and imagination since I first heard it. I mean, I remember as a child at Christmas playing at Ebenezer Scrooge on every Christmas. I would sort of count my money, look at my meager account in my local savings bank, and light a candle in my room and sort of say blah humbug. And I another thing, maybe this is brought about my interest in one person performance, is that I grew up in a neighborhood devoid of other children. So it was just me sort of traipsing around the backyard wearing last year's Halloween costume, mumbling to myself,
Where were your siblings? You have three. You said you had three siblings?
They were much. I was an accident. I was born by mistake. My siblings are about 10 years older than I am.
Wow.
7 and 10 years older. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was ostensibly an only child.
That's nuts. I mean, I'm 3.5 years apart from my brother, and we were just far enough apart to not be in high school together. So we were 4 grades apart, but 3.5 years, and we got along fine. And then my kids are 20 months apart, and I don't know. I rely so much on as the oldest child. I rely on validation, like what acting and performing does for me. It gives me that validation that the oldest child needs, right? So then I still I feel like I understand what the youngest child or what only children need, but I will never experience that. And so for me, I feel like there's a little bit of something that I've missed out on, that only children and youngest children or whatnot, they have the pleasure, the fortunate ability to escape completely into their minds in a way, in a creative way.
Yes, I think that's right. I think I enjoyed that very privilege because I think my parents were so exhausted, by raising the other two, and sort of threw up their hands at some point and said, as long as he doesn't kill himself, just, go out and be whatever you want to be. So, again, they never encouraged me in this profession, and they never discouraged me, and they always sort of left me alone and delighted in me in a way that I'll be eternally grateful to them for.
That's amazing. Did they get to see you perform on Broadway and reach that pinnacle?
They did. They saw my Broadway debut in, I guess it was autumn of 2003, almost 20 years ago. Good Lord, Alan. At the Lyceum Theater, but they came in for opening night. for that, and saw I Am My Own Life, the one-person show that I did then.
And even now,
and then they come to things. And then my mother died in 2008 and my father in 2015. So
wow.
they've missed the recent stuff. But the extraordinary thing about Christmas Carol, for me personally, is that I hear their voices on stage. It's kind of like being on stage with my parents, because I've stolen line readings from them. And because we used to read it every Christmas. And our gorgeous sound designer, Joshua Reed, I told him about this recording I have of them reading it on cassette that was made in the last century. And and I haven't had the guts to listen to it. I still haven't listened to it. But he says, well, it's going to, those things are going to demagnetize or whatever. So he sent me this gizmo that you put them in and transfers them to memory stick.
Yeah, you got to digitize it.
Yes. And so I do that. So I have them, but I still haven't listened to them yet. But their voices are there, preserved, reading the entire thing. And someday, I'm gonna listen to it. I'll work up my courage and listen to it.
That's beautiful. I think that there's a lot of who you are influenced now in a way that, I mean, maybe you're aware of, or maybe not, because like the TV got knocked over. You started reading a story. Your career took shape because a family friend couldn't come over because they had a cold. And like all of this is just weirdly these little chances, these little tweaks that happened and made you who you are. And your parents too, they seemed like they were such great people, where they were just like, the art is great. Just go out, and as long as you're happy, as long as you're not hurting anybody, like you said, as long as you're not hurting yourself or hurting others, just be happy. And I think that I sort of feel like that's pulled a little bit of a pressure blanket off of you, if I'm using a correct metaphor.
Yes, I think that's a really astute observation. I think it did. I didn't feel that sort of that pressure. It's amazing how you describe it, that life is just such a random and accidental thing, and as long as we sort of grope towards things that make us happy and people that we love, then that's all you can do, and then the rest of it is just chance.
That's what I started doing in my late 30s, and I just turned 42 recently, right? And I wish, they always say youth is wasted on the young. I wish I could go back to 20 something me, Aled, and just be like, dude, relax. You don't need to worry about all these other things, and it's all going to work out, right? And for me, it's trusting this feeling I get, kind of the upper part of my chest, of like pulling me towards something, and I'm like, oh, okay. And it's similar in what you had said a little while ago about you take the roles that are unexpected. They come to you, and you're like, yeah, I'll do it. Like, there's no reason not to. I'm going to do it. And like Christmas Carol now is phenomenal. It's this amazing thing that showcases everything that about you and who you are, and it's, without knowing it, the audience gets such a glimpse into your childhood and who you are as a person, right? Even though you're not playing Jefferson on stage, you're playing yourself. I mean, you're playing all these other characters. And I think it just speaks so much. It speaks absolutely so much to the fact that you just have to follow what makes you happy. And I guess pay it forward. Is that what I'm looking for? Because if you're doing that and other people are doing that, then all of a sudden you're going to be on a team of people that are all doing that. And then you have lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, that's a lovely way of putting it. Yeah, ideally so. I always am confounded by the inevitable question that you receive from people starting out in the business of, what must I do? What should I do? What course should I take? And it's ultimately an impossible question to answer. And I always give the most unsatisfactory of responses, I'm sure, because there is no way, or there are as many ways as there are artists pursuing it. I think a lot of people get themselves into trouble by saying, look, I went and hired a an acting coach. I hired a vocal coach for this song. These things should have all have added up to a stunningly successful audition, and I should have been cast. And it just does not work that way at all. As however frustrating that may be, you can only please yourself. You can only explore in an audition that which interests you, and be true to yourself, and never try to second guess them or give them what they want. It's ultimately a very selfish act, I suppose, and yet you can do no less.
Well, that's all you can do, I think, to showcase who you are. And you hear this all the time. Embrace what makes you different. And it was Michael Urie that gave the advice on this podcast a long time ago. Was you can't go into an audition thinking the part is yours. Don't leave the audition saying, "Oh man, I lost that audition," because the point is you never had it to begin with. You were there to see if you were right for the role, and if you didn't get it, you weren't right for the role, and then eventually you will be. But if you go in getting down on yourself every single time you hear a no or mess up, like you're never going to get anywhere. If you're, I don't know. I just look at like the quote unquote weirdos, right? The people who are different, the misfits, the outcasts, who have a home on stage and in theater and performing, because all of a sudden that's where they're accepted. And I think that's beautiful, absolutely a beautiful thing about theater and performing in general.
Yeah. Oh God, yes.
Yeah. So let's wrap up here with 3 closing questions that I ask everybody to end the episodes. The first one, just very simply, is what motivates you?
What motivates me? Gosh, I am maybe one of the most non-reflective people or unreflective people you would ever meet. I suppose it's curiosity. It's wonder about the world. Sometimes I feel as an actor, I'm an actor because I'm not a terribly successful human being. I'm so interested in being other people, and trying out what it means to be, what it feels like to be other people, because of some sort of inadequacy in myself. I'm not complete without extending myself with curiosity towards others. That's sort of the bad part of it, maybe. And the good part of it is just it's lovely to feel this sense of curiosity and wonder every day. So I think that's what motivates me. Just interest in the world, interest in other human beings, and how they think, and why they act, and how they feel. Why I didn't become a psychiatrist? I don't know. A psychiatrist, a philosopher explores those things. But it feels right for me to explore them as an actor, literally, putting on their shoes and their
With the
hats.
multiverse, you are a psychologist, but in this universe, in this one, you are an actor because that guy got a cold. That's all there is. That's the answer.
Right. That's all there is. Yeah, could have been different.
So similar to what we were talking about earlier, the next question is, what advice would you give to your younger self and younger people listening now, starting out down a similar path?
I think I would say I would just give my younger self a little clap on the back and squeeze of the shoulder and a sideways hug and say, carry on. Just do what you're doing. It'll all work out. Don't get too upset about anything. Just carry on exploring and be good to yourself and to those around you.
I love that. All right. Last question, hardest one. If you could only see one show for the rest of your life, but you can see it as many times as you want, what would you see?
Oh boy. And these are from the catalog of shows that I have seen from my memory. Is
Sure.
that or just any? Yeah.
Well, that or any show, anything. What pops to mind?
Again and again. This is so odd, but what pops into my mind is Bette Bourne playing Quentin Crisp in Resident Alien. I saw it at New York Theater Workshop, and it's a one-person show. It takes place in Quentin Crisp's 3rd Street apartment in the East Village, and it was just the most riveting thing. I saw it in Edinburgh as well. I would see it wherever I could, and I loved dwelling with that actor and that character, Quentin Crisp, in that wonderful squalid set. and I just felt very happy and very comfortable and endlessly engaged.
Well, now I need to go see the show. I've never seen it. All right. Are you on a social media anywhere? Do you do the socials?
No, I don't. I live in a cloud of oblivion, which I kind of enjoy. I don't have any of those things. I'll write you a letter.
And send me a carrier pigeon, messenger owl.
Yes, tied to the leg of an owl.
You can get more of me at thetheaterpodcast.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and TikTok. Leave a rating and a review. This has been edited by Well-Rounded Hoodlum Productions. Jukebox the Ghost gave us our intro and outro music, and Jefferson Mays, thank you so much. I really enjoy getting to talk to you.
This has been just heaven. Thank you.
Take a deep breath, make the world a little colorful.